Hi, everybody. I'm Ben. Thanks for the really nice welcome and having me back. I'm reprising a talk that I gave at the Trenton Computer Festival, ITP. There's a lot of acronyms going around in these events. IEEE, ACM, there's a lot of stuff. But really glad to be here. I'm really excited that this is part of World Usability Day. Josephine mentioned Philly Chi. I used to be on the board of that organization in Philly where we put on UX events. World Usability Day was one of them. When I was going back through my notes, I realized, Josephine, you were one of the speakers for World Usability Day back in 22, I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, right after I was on the board. So a lot of great things. So tonight I want to talk about a project that I really enjoyed doing at FourFront where I work. This is it's about living beyond breast cancer. It's a really great website, and I think it's an interesting project for a number of reasons. It blends UX work, SEO, which is kind of the bread and butter of our company, FourFront, and a really meaningful project. I think people in the audience kind of skew toward computer science, is my understanding. So for you folks, I think this might be a good insight into UX processes, information architecture. If you're more on the UX side, it might be interesting because this project is really informed by SEO data in a way that I think most UX professionals probably don't work. So maybe a little bit for everyone. I'm going to try to keep kind of a complex story as crisp and coherent as possible. You can let me know how I do at the end. But as I mentioned, this is a really meaningful project to me. The LBBC website is really great. This is a great organization, large nonprofit that's been based out of Philadelphia for many years. And I'll tell you more about them. This was also an opportunity for me as I just graduated from my master's program in UX design, and it helped me kind of put some of the things I've learned into the real world. And it crystallized a few lessons for me, which is mainly a successful website should balance user and organization needs. Okay, before I dive into it, I want you to imagine for a second that you are on a team that has put together a beautiful new website for your organization. Maybe it's your company, maybe it's a nonprofit. For whatever reason, you all decided you need a better kind of front face to the world, right? So you've put a lot of energy into redesigning it. You love how it looks. Everyone's happy. You've corralled stakeholders, managed a lot of opinions. You finally put it out into the world, right? Everyone's happy. And then the data starts coming in and you realize, oh crap, all of our traffic has gone away. What happened? Our beautiful website is suddenly not bringing people in like it used to. And what you realize afterwards is that for some reason, Google does not like your new website. And all these rankings that you had on your old website have suddenly disappeared. And that might sound kind of not a big deal, but this has a huge impact on a lot of businesses. Less people coming to your website means less leads, less sales, less reaching your goals. So this can be a big reputational hit, can be a big business impact for this to happen. And this is a real scenario that I've seen happen, not directly, but a lot of clients who come to FourFront have gone through this. And LBBC was one of those clients who had pretty much experienced this and came to us specifically to avoid it in the future. I'm realizing this is probably blocking all of your views. Okay. So FourFront, I just want to give you a quick intro to our company. We use data science for digital marketing. We harness advanced data analytics to deliver smarter, faster, and more impactful results. Search engine optimization, paid ads, content strategy. These are kind of our bread and butter and what we help our clients do to get more business from their websites. And as Josephine mentioned, I'm Ben. I've worked at FourFront for almost 9 years now. I taught for 2 years at Jefferson University in their UX grad program, and I've had sort of a meandering path to where I am now, where I've kind of moved from being a UX strategist, and I'm now working a lot in product strategy, and like everyone else, trying to figure out if we need to do something with AI to make sure we stick around. And LBBC, as I mentioned, this is a locally headquartered in Philadelphia nonprofit. And this is a really amazing website for anyone. Hopefully you're not impacted by breast cancer, but if you are, or someone you know, this is a great free resource. They have expert approved content that helps people through this difficult process. And this was their website when they came to us. And they, for many reasons, wanted to put a new face on this website, and they wanted to avoid going through the SEO nightmare that they'd experienced before. And by the end of it, it looked more like this, a lot fresher and brighter, but a lot went into getting to this point. So I'm going to kind of take you through that. Our challenge was to leverage a lot of different data and synthesize that into a clear content strategy, including where I'll focus a lot of the story tonight, the structure of the website. How does the navigation work? How does thousands of pages of helpful content need to be structured so that users can find it when they need it, and so that they can reach all of their different goals for their nonprofit? We were responsible for the transition. We wanted to increase traffic, but especially avoid a major loss of existing traffic by transitioning all the authority built into their old website into the new website. And we were responsible for prioritizing key opportunities for content consolidation and creating new content, refreshing things like that. And this was a really long project. So they first came to us in 2020. Probably another reason this project sticks out, because I was stuck at home working on it for a while. But we started talking about it then, and we launched Breast Cancer Awareness Month in 2022. So you can see that in Q3 22. Throughout that, we were doing ongoing SEO work, which is continued to this day. And the official redesign kickoff, we did a lot of market research that built on strategic work that they had done for their brand coming in. And then we used all of that to go into what we call an SEO design, which is all of the work that we do to help them successfully transition into the new website. So that kind of pink rectangle is where I'm going to be focusing most tonight. Okay, in case you don't know what information architecture is, IA is the discipline of making information findable and understandable. I think that's a pretty good definition. That's from the Interaction Design Foundation. And the Figma blog, they have some good stuff on there, identifies 3 core components of information architecture. So this discipline is concerned with users, who they are and what they need, context, where, why, and how they interact with the content, and then the content itself, what they engage with. And this, as you might imagine, impacts a website in a lot of different ways. The main navigation is kind of what instantly comes to most people's minds, but that's really just one layer of a complex ecosystem. So there's a lot of different navigation things happening across a website. There's the small utility nav above the main navigation. There's site search and all of that. There's what's called local navigation, which is how you find your way around a specific part of the website. There's on-page navigation in some cases. There's footer, there's breadcrumbs. And then outside of the navs, there's sitemaps, which could be an XML document that we have to manage so that search engines know how to index a website. There's sometimes an HTML sitemap, which is a page that kind of gives you every page on the website in one place. And there's lots of other things, all the way to taxonomy and metadata and all the ways that we tie things together. Okay, that's Information Architecture 101, which our friend Lauren would be happy about, I hope. Okay, so why be concerned? Findability is kind of the main thing with IA. How do we make sure people find the content that they need? Discovering things along the way. How do we shape their path through a website? A lot of times it's how do we guide people to specific outcomes that we want as an organization. Maybe it's making a donation. Maybe it's signing up for an email list. Maybe it's a purchase. Okay, cool. So now how did we do this? One of the first things that I like to do is just look at the current website and figure out what's going well, what are the challenges. So if you look at this, where they started, I don't know about you, but I kind of feel myself darting around a lot, like my eyes kind of looking around. There's a lot of different stuff. There's a lot of options. And if you start to sort of group things, you can start to see, like, in addition to there being a lot of options, they're sort of mixing purposes all around the page. So if you look at the purple color, this is like brand information. There's the logo, the About Us is up in the utility nav, social media. There's a browse by who you are, which is in kind of two different places. The green is like donate and get involved. So there, not only is there a lot, but it's all sort of mixed up. The site search is in the middle, which isn't normally where you would think it would be. So there's just a lot competing for attention, a lot of options. And this happens a lot when, like this organization, you've experienced a lot of growth and you've kind of outgrown your current system. And you just sort of tack things on a lot. So a lot of people get to this. It's nobody's fault really, but they definitely needed to take a fresh look. So if that's all we did, just kind of try to regroup some things, maybe remove some things, make them sub-items. This is where we ended up. And this would have been fine, but we ended up pretty far from here. But this was just kind of an initial first step. And then started to look at, okay, if we wanted to simplify it in this way, how do we make all of those sub-items exist under these menus? If we go deeper, that was just the homepage, but you get into all of their rich information. One of the things you notice is on the left, they had this sidebar. And this was pretty much a link to every single page on their website that you could get to. Basically, they wanted you to be able to find anything from any page that you ended up on, which sounds like a good idea, but it's pretty overwhelming in practice. So we had to come up with a way to avoid that. It's kind of a technical debt problem too, like having so many links on every page, it kind of dilutes the whole system. So that was another problem that we wanted to try to solve. Okay, so looking at where we started and where we went, this is kind of the whole journey. And I worked out of Miro for most of this project. This was really great for me because it was a collaborative system, it was visual, could kind of guide a lot of stakeholders through the process one step at a time and be able to edit on the fly. And sort of the way the process went is following this double diamond model. Has anyone heard of this by any chance? It's kind of it's an innovation framework. I come back to it a lot because what I really love about it is this idea of divergent and convergent thinking. I find myself doing this a lot in various work, but basically the idea is you're kind of getting a lot of information, you're researching, you're building sort of a list of things, and then you're eventually synthesizing it, right? You're kind of grouping, deleting stuff, coming to conclusions about your research, and then it sort of starts again. In this process, this is sort of an innovation framework, so it's all about getting to this middle section where you've defined a problem. So you go through discovery, you're learning a lot, then you converge, and you have a problem definition. And now you're in the solution space, so you're coming up with lots of ideas. And then eventually you kind of land on the one that seems like the right one. And now you're sort of refining. You're coming down into a crisp solution at the end. And the steps I went through with this IA project roughly follow this framework. So at the beginning, setting the stage, getting a lot of input, working toward sort of a defined structure at a high level, and then working through like all the details, like how does this show up as a navigation design? How does this show up as wireframes for different page types? And then working with developers and designers to get it working and launch it. So I want to walk through each of those stages quickly to sort of show you how it goes. All right, so setting the stage. This was a slide that I put together and worked through with the client and our internal team. And one of the reasons this was so important was a lot of people had never done this kind of work. So needed to make sure we were all kind of on the same page. Like, why are we doing this? What's the goal? And this was really helpful just as a foundation to the whole project. So kind of explained that a successful information architecture needs to be informed by the information needs the site's users, the content on the website, and the goals of the organization. And specifically, the goals of this project are to help users find what they need with more precision, highlight important resources that are currently hard to find, highlight brand messaging to increase value and credibility, and then increase actions that result in improved KPIs. So for them, this was email list signups, registering for programs. There was a whole list, but those were kind of the top two. This is supposed to animate. Let me see if I can. Does that still look good on your side?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great.
Yeah, we can't see any of the microprint, but.
Okay, yeah, that's okay. Okay, thanks. Basically, I just want to show that in this synthesizing stage, we were bringing in a lot of previous work that the organization had done around defining their brand values, a lot of things that we brought from our marketing research before this project, and synthesizing that into how we wanted to tackle this information architecture project. So key one is team alignment, getting clear on who our target users are. For them, they were really, their strengths in their content were helping people who are newly diagnosed, in treatment, and they have really great content for metastatic breast cancer in particular, which means cancer that's started to spread, and so that introduces specific challenges and questions and all of that. So they're really good at helping people in those situations. The secondary was journey or unique like me, so helping people through specific parts of their breast cancer journey, and then also helping specific demographics, basically like young people with breast cancer, Black people with breast cancer, there's men with breast cancer. They had certain sections of content that were catering to people with different demographics, basically. So getting clear on that and understanding how to cater to those audiences was really important. This all needed to be really user-focused. We confirmed the psychosocial focus of the new website and the brand. They were really strong on helping people with the emotional and the community needs of breast cancer. And basically confirmed, we want to simplify the structure. What you have is really complicated. It's great, but we need to get something more simple. And that was actually, it sounds really simple to put it that way, but it took a while to get to that point. Okay, couple ideas on how we were going to do that. Okay, competitor nav audit. So this is a unique process that we use when we're doing nav design. This is also pretty hard to see, but what this is a spreadsheet where we've identified high-performing competitors within the keyword universe that we're targeting. In this case, breast cancer-related keywords. So we know websites like cancer.org, breastcancer.org, cancer.net, they're all kind of like that. Komen, they all tend to rank really highly in results for the keywords we know we want to appear for, based on the users and based on all the research we've done. And so what we did was we basically manually looked at what do they have in their navigation, put it in the spreadsheet, and then we start grouping. So like the blue color is informational content, like about breast cancer was a really common label. The purple is like support, find support, coping with cancer, survivorship. The yellow started to be like calls to action, get involved. So now that we're coloring it, we can start to see patterns, we can start sorting, we can start to say, okay, a lot of times the about stuff is usually on the left. The calls to action are usually on the right. That's not really a big revelation, but these are the types of things that we can start to point out. And now we can also quantify it, which is always really valuable in this kind of like hard to quantify world at times. So this was really helpful. And this gives us a data-backed first draft of a typical navigation in this space. So this is also something we could say users kind of expect X, Y, Z based on what we've seen out in the real world. And from there, we could create a nav simply based on this. So this was kind of where we landed based on what we were seeing simply from competitors. Another reason this is valuable, looking at what's out in the world already, is you start to see interesting specific design choices. In this case, a lot of people really liked this idea of like the timeline and being able to click at different points and be taken to content that matches, like prevention and screening on the left, later stage treatment, and things like that. So we actually explored, should this be the main navigation? And we didn't end up there, but we did start using this in certain ways. Okay, content audit and card sorting. Content audit this is probably the most like SEO part of this process. This was looking at all the pages of the website, the existing website, and we look at all of these metrics for every page. So how many people are entering the website on this page? How many clicks from Google does it get? How many internal links are pointing to this page? How deep on the website is it? A lot of different things. And we do some algorithms that basically assign weight to all of this. And we end up with this summary on the left, where we've looked at 6,000 total pages. We know 2,500 of these we definitely need to keep. These are really important. We have like 2,000 that we can safely remove, 1,000 of which were basically duplicates of a different page. So that was very helpful. And then we had about 1,000 that we needed to review and go into more depth. So this was very helpful for the transition. This also gives us really great data to head into a card sorting activity. So this is something where you basically take a lot of different pages in this case, and you start manually, sometimes even with physical cards, putting them into groups. And this is a great activity to do with a lot of different stakeholders. In this case, I was kind of doing it on my own and then bringing stakeholders in to sort of break what I came up with and stuff like that. But what you end up with is categories, basically, of all the existing content. How do we logically group them together in ways that people would maybe be able to find if we labeled them as such on the website? Yeah, so this was a little complicated. But this was really important to the process. This gave us confidence about high-level groupings. It told us what the key pages of the current site are. We identified learn, community, get support, give, your journey, about us. Those were like the top-level groupings that we wanted to highlight throughout the website. And we started identifying subgroups under there that we thought would work. Okay, so we've done a ton of research, looked at this a bunch of different ways. Now we start thinking, how do we make this look in actual visual form? So we've done this a couple times throughout the process already, but now it's based on a lot of different evidence, a lot of different input. And along the way, we've sort of had some disagreements with different stakeholders and had some concessions and some negotiations. So we should be ready at this point to pretty much start designing this. These were a couple ideas. Started trying, does it make sense to do this timeline thing? This feels a little busy. Maybe we shouldn't do that. Maybe it shows up in mobile view. Looking at it a lot of different ways. And then once it gets down into the subgroupings, that gets a little more complicated. Some of these things fit in both places. Do we cross-link? So going through all these details throughout the whole site to make sure everything is going to be findable. So there are a lot of different options. This is basically where we landed, though. So this was, I'm curious if people think this is a good idea or not, because we're still not totally sure, but where we landed was 3 main nav items: living with breast cancer, about breast cancer, and stories. This kind of created this focused nav. You only have 3 options, so it's not very overwhelming. But there were a lot more things that we needed people to find. So we came up with this option where we're going to have that and a hamburger menu, which is the 3 lines thing, right? So if you pop that open, you'd be able to get a lot of other options as well, but they're sort of hidden into this like secondary main nav. So there was a lot of work coming up with how that's going to work. How do we link all these things together? Going through the whole sitemap exercise, making sure we've accounted for every single page, and then thinking about all the other navigations as well. So what do we need to highlight in the footer that maybe we're not giving as much weight in the main navigation? We used a pre-footer area to highlight a sign up on almost every page of the site. This is the sitemap. Did a whole exercise on site search. I'm sure some of you know this is kind of a complicated task. The developers did a lot of work through here and through taxonomy and metadata, which also made a big impact on how we structured wireframes. So when we got to this stage, this is where we started to get into the realm where we're handing off to the designers and developers. But our role was to basically say, this is how the structure of each page needs to look and all of the different assets that we want. Basically, what we need to make sure LBBC will continue to perform well in search. So what I like to do is feature maps, thinking about big blocks of content and then turning that into more detailed wireframes. So we got to this sort of low fidelity wireframe stage on our team before handing it off to the visual designers. This is also where we started to visualize some of the ideas we've been having about local navigation. How do we help you see where you are on the website and get to related content that's either like a child of your current page, a sibling of your current page, the parent of it? Where do we cut off that sort of window of where you are on the sitemap so that it's not overwhelming like the existing site? This was a very complicated thing to make work, but I think it is working. We also wanted to make sure we're pulling in and connecting websites in as dynamic a way as possible. So we created a taxonomy strategy where every informational page on the site is tagged based on the type of cancer that it's talking about, life stage, things like this, so that we can make sure each page is dynamically linked through this related resources section. All right, did a whole URL structure as well, and then bringing the website to life. So I think the visual designer did a really great job bringing our low fidelity wireframes to life. You can see that the timeline thing did make an appearance on the home page, but was not the main navigation strategy. Informational content using that sidebar approach with the local navigation, related resources. And then this is how the main nav looked and our sidebar menu. So this was really interesting because we ended up duplicating the things that are out here so that everything was included. And this works really well too, because when you respond to mobile, everything is still there, which is nice. Okay, quickly, just in case anyone's interested, the more SEO side of this whole project, all of these things were really important to making sure that they preserved all of their sort of SEO authority and didn't lose any traffic, which is the big doomsday that I was painting at the beginning of this talk. One of the main things, if anyone here is ever going through a project like this, is basically figure out which pages are driving organic traffic to your site and make sure they're represented on your new website, and make sure you redirect your old URLs to those new URLs if they do change. That's the most important thing, but all of these other things you have to do as well. And the results, so we saw a big increase in clicks to target keywords. We were able to redesign over 2,000 pages without losing rankings. We did hear really good feedback about user flow, about clearer navigation. Everyone felt that this website aligned with the brand's direction. We got great kudos from our client, which is always nice. And this was their trend line. So back before they worked with us, previous redesign, this was the nightmare. And then we launched, like I said at the beginning, in Breast Cancer Awareness Month in October of 22, and had a big boost of traffic. We picked that out like 2 years before because we knew getting that boost of traffic was going to help the new website really sort of start on a good note, which was sort of a gamble. We had to make sure we weren't going to lose out on all of that, but it paid off. So the website's doing really well. Okay, so how might you apply some of these learnings? I think early and proactive planning stands out when I think back at this project. Like I said, we planned out like a 2-year project and pretty much hit the milestones along the way, which was really cool to see. And we integrated a lot of different things from the very beginning that typically aren't. SEO and UX was considered from the beginning, and that really was key to success. And we brought together a lot of different stakeholders and experts along the way. And I think we did a really good job of not stopping at the first idea. I think you saw a lot of opportunities where certain navigations could have worked, but we kept pushing and got something interesting by the end. All right. Are we doing okay on time?
We're doing great on that.
Okay. Yeah, launching that high traffic time was a great strategy, provided you're ready. I also think using Miro, for me personally, was really helpful just to being able to collaborate with a lot of people. We were working remote. A lot of people were working remote for the first time in 2020 and 2021. So the tools you use for this kind of thing can make a huge difference. These are a couple of our partners, so shout out to them. If anybody's looking for this kind of work, please hire these people. And we do have a guide on our website if you want to learn more about all of this. And a webinar that some of my colleagues gave. This was October of last year. And that's me. I'd love to connect with you all. Again, really just want to say thanks to Josephine and Dennis and everyone for having me and bringing me back. So I'd love to hear if you have any questions or comments, and yeah.
Thanks, Van.